What's good, everybody? SG Scouts here, back with another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at North Carolina's star quarterback Sam Howell. And since this is part one of the series, we're going to be focusing in on his sophomore tape. And then at a later date, once the 2021 season finishes, we'll sort of summarize his junior tape and then, have a final outlook on him as a prospect. But before we get into the film session, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn the notification bell to never miss a video. Also, let me know in the comments what you think of Howell as a prospect, and let me know if there's a player you want to see in the next film session. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so we have him here against NC State, and I'm going to quickly put up his stats so far in college, just to add some more context to the production he has at this level. But on the first play, North Carolina was a notorious deep passing team, so for that reason, NC State is playing very conservative in coverage. Gonna have like a cover 2 invert look, and basically gonna have 3 deep safeties just to keep everything in front of them. They know that Howell loves to attack the deep parts of the field, and then in such a heavy zone look, and I mean they're presenting the zone pre-snap, so in such a heavy zone look, it's important. Or what offenses like to do is funnel routes into the same area to confuse zone defenders, and that's what North Carolina is going to do here, as they're going to have the slot running over and sort of confuse those middle zones, and then the tight end's going to come with a seam, slowly moving towards the middle, and you'll see that Howell will throw with good anticipation right into the hole between the defenders. You'll see, at this point he's already getting set up to throw. He sees that middle safety is stuck on the over route, and it's going to create a little small space, and he's going to fit it in right there to the tight end. And that's where I think he's really best at, when he's in structure and he can use his strong arm to fit the ball into tight spots. And here's another play where Howell's going to show off the strong arm, and on this play NC State's going to do the opposite of what they did on the previous snap that we saw, and they're actually going to play aggressive, and they're going to blitz Howell. But North Carolina is going to run max protection and have just 2 vertical routes on the outsides, and then NC State playing man coverage with the safety in the middle. Safety is sort of in a tough spot. But you'll see Howell delivers an absolute amazing ball. Great touch on deep balls. That's what allows him to be so successful. He's working down the field. He has the fastball, but then he also has the touch. And it's good to see that he has a feel for when to use which. As on the previous play, we saw him throw the fastball 20 yards downfield in tight coverage, and here he's throwing 50 yards downfield with beautiful touch. So you've seen some of the good so far, but on this play we're going to see some of the bad. He does have some pocket management issues, and sometimes he feels blitzes, or he feels pressure when it's not really there. And on this play, NC State's playing another deep cover 3, and North Carolina's got some routes that are going to end up around the sticks, and it is 3rd and 17. Keep in mind, they only have a 3-man rush, so this should be a clean pocket. It's going to be a deep drop. It's a longer developing play, and when he's at the end of his drop, I mean, you take a look at the 3 routes developing down the field, and they all look like they have a chance. You see the guy in the middle. It looks like he's about to cut, into where that safety is. And then, we move up here while Howell's stepping up in the pocket. That route in the middle is wide open, and it should get him close to a first down. He's got a guy on the left. He could try clean pocket. For some reason, Howell steps up, runs into his own lineman. And, at this point, he just needs to not make a mistake. Almost gets sacked. And just very poor, pocket management. And created pressure on himself when really there wasn't anything there. Here's another play where Howell's going to show off his skills in structure, as NC State is yet again worried about the deep passing game that North Carolina has. And here North Carolina is going to be running vertical routes across the formation, this 2x2, and you're going to see NC State will drop into that same cover 3 they have, and they've already used it a few times at least in this game. So Howell's seen this look before, and he almost expects it. So he knows he has 4 vertical routes working against 3 deep safeties. He's going to have an advantage somewhere, and he sees that on the far side of the screen that the safety is actually lined up on the slot, and he knows that corner on the far side is playing a hook zone, and there's going to be a gap between the safety and the hook defender, and he's going to take full advantage of that. So he's looking to that side post snap, and he sees that the safety's playing the slot guy, sees the hook zone guy, sits, and then creates a small little hole there. And Howell fits it in. Strong arm, great throw. Decisive in his progression there. Takes what the defense gives him, and that's really where he's at his best right there. So here we got 3rd and 10. This is where quarterbacks make their money at the next level. And where Sam struggles the most is when he gets blitzed. And we saw that play earlier where he delivered the long ball, but that was with max protection. But here on 3rd down, it's just him in the pocket. Blitz is gonna come. You'll see he's gonna freeze up. NC State's playing man coverage against the board. See the corner comes in from the side. And at this point, when he sees these two guys coming to him, he's got to get rid of the ball quickly. You don't want to take sacks. Don't want to, these negative plays, especially in the NFL. But Howell just freezes up. And he takes a big hit right there. So that's something he's definitely going to have to work on. Now taking a look at what he can do with his legs here, as the pocket's going to break down on this play. And you'll see that Sam's not just a guy with a strong arm, a big dude. But he is also a guy who can, evade pressure and get out of the pocket and get some yards on his own. He's going to do really well here to stay upright, keep his eyes down the field, stay balanced through this contact. And you can see that he's a solid athlete. So just another thing that you need to take into account when evaluating him as a prospect. So now I'm actually going to let some clips run while I just sort of give my final thoughts on Howell and end this part 1. I think he's an intriguing prospect, and I'm interested to see how he develops into this next year. He's got good size. He's sort of similar to Malik Willis in that he's about 6'5", 220 or so. He's got solid athleticism, probably not as good as Malik Willis, Malik the Freak. In the pocket, I think he's got solid toughness, but I also do think he drops his head a lot, especially against the blitz, and I think that's probably his biggest issue. And that's something you see a lot of rookie quarterbacks struggle with in the NFL, is sort of diagnosing coverages and then being able to stand up tall in the pocket. And that's why I like sort of prospects like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and then this year Malik Willis. I like to see guys who consistently stand tall in the pocket at the college level, and guys who can make plays with their legs. And although Howell's got solid athletic ability, I don't really think at the next level he's going to be anything more than around average when it comes to that department. His mental processing is solid. I think in structure he does very well to understand how zone defenders react to concepts, route concepts. And we saw some plays where he fit balls into really tight spots. So as far as his passing ability, I think there's a lot to like. Pre-snap and then post-snap reading safeties, I think he does a lot of good things. His post-snap diagnosis and his process. I saw even some plays where he's reading across the field. So just overall, when he's in structure, I think he's a very capable quarterback, and I think teams will be attracted to the deep ball style that North Carolina played, and just how dangerous his arm ability is. When it comes to his footwork, he's pretty smooth in his drop back, but you will see, especially under pressure, that his feet won't always be set when he's throwing, and you also see that outside of the pocket sometimes. He won't set his feet, and then also just in general his footwork on some of his deep balls, you'll see his feet facing sideways, and not really being in the right positioning, and that will lead to some balls being floaters. But nothing too alarming in terms of the footwork, but there are things to improve. His decision making was also solid. A guy with such a strong arm at the college level, he does try to fit the ball into tight spots, and he will get punished at times for that. But I think his ambition and just his overall arm talent is something that I think teams can work with in the NFL, and I think something that'll be seen as more of a positive than a negative. When it comes to off-script plays, he usually looks pretty awkward. You know, in these types of situations, sort of like a Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins feels a little more athletic and a little stronger. I think that really saves him in that department. Need to. So I think that's, you know, an area where he probably you know, won't improve much, or I have a hard time seeing him improve. And I just think that's, you know, who he is as a quarterback. You know, I think he's a tall, strong guy who has a great arm, who can deliver in structure, like I've said countless times probably at this point. And I think that will be something that teams will like at the next level. But you know, his ability to, you know, operate under pressure is really what's gonna make or break him, and is really what's gonna, you know, end up deciding how high he goes in the draft. So that's really the area where I'd like to see him improve the most, is just his ability to keep the eyes downfield and sort of manage the pocket through pressure. And that is the end to my final thoughts on Sam Howell. I'm excited to hear your guys' opinions on him. And also, please let me know who you guys want to see in the next film session. And yeah, man, that's it for me today. I'm out.